Hello and welcome everyone. So today we are going to be going over the final update for that giant summer TBR that I put together. And it's just so that, accountability, that thing, but also to keep you guys updated in case you were curious if I read through all 25 of those books. Spoiler, I did not. I did not. I mean, I feel like we probably could have guessed at some point that that probably wasn't going to happen. But it's not a bad thing. I mean, that was just I wanted to get through all of them, but unfortunately during August I read one book and it wasn't even one from the summer TBR. It was a book I owned at least though. So I'll at least give myself credit for that. When I did read the one book in August, it was at least for a book that I did own. So points. I'm begging for scraps at this point. So anyways, this is the whole list. I will insert a picture right now so that you guys can see what the entire TBR was. So it was 25 books altogether, and out of the 25, I got through 10 of them. One was a DNF. So the last time I talked to you guys about this, I had told you I had got through The Sorceress of Darshiva by David Eddings and The Seeress of Kel by David Eddings, Shadow by Anne Logston, and Taliesin I think I was in the middle of, but I have finished that since. And it's all the way on the other side of the living room, and I'm not going to go grab it right now. So I did finish that one, though. So now we're just going to go through the rest of what's left here so that I can show you guys if I read them or not. And then one of the other things before I get into the ones I've read is the books that were part of the unwrapped shelf. I'm actually going to be carrying those over for the rest of the year. Fingers crossed I get through them, and it's just because I don't want to have to rewrap them and put them back on the shelf. But the ones that came from here, I'm actually just going to put their tag back inside the cooking pot, and they will get their chance another time. That's the best way that I can kind of put these back out onto the grand TBR. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's jump into this. So first up we have Odd Magic by Patricia A. McKillop. Yes, I read this one. Of course I did. She's my girl. I have to say that next to her short story, The Thrum of the Arrow of Cheryl, this is her most accessible book, because she does tend to have a very floral, flowery kind of writing. It's very whimsical writing that at times can be a little confusing, but this one, it's pretty straightforward. It has a beautiful story. It involves a magic school, so if you're kind of into that, it doesn't focus on the magic school, but it focuses on a character who ends up going to the magic school to be a teacher. But then it becomes more than that, and there's this mystery around Odd, this magical lady. There's a king trying to control how magic can be used, and there's a potential magic user who's causing havoc within his city that he's not super fond of. And so it all just kind of slowly unravels and comes together. It's a beautiful story. There's these very small little romances throughout it, which she's known to do in all of her books, which I love. But it's beautiful. And so, like I said, I think it's her most accessible story because it's her least confusing if you don't take your time with them. I'm not saying all of her stories are super duper confusing, but if you're not taking your time and really paying attention to what she's writing and paying attention to the descriptions, because a lot of her story is told with the help of descriptions, you're gonna get lost. So that's my call on that. So next we have Rise of the Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. This is book 2 in the trilogy. I forget what the trilogy is called, but it might just be called The Jumbies. I know the first book is called The Jumbies, but basically I audiobooked this one. I loved it. I would love, 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 love to see an adult fantasy book that utilizes Caribbean folklore, because the idea of the Jumbies is so intriguing. It's just so intriguing because, like, on one hand you're like, are they evil? And on the other hand you're like, no, they're sad and lonely. But no, they are evil. No, they're not. They are. And like, that was like kind of the vibes you get with this. You follow the same main character from the first book. She little bit of a spoiler, she finds out what her, in the first book, you know, she finds out what her bloodline is, essentially, and it connects back into this one. There is a lot of focus on like family connection. I liked how Baptiste like brought in essentially she touches on slavery, essentially, and how people from the Caribbean were taken overseas on boats, but she touches on the fact that a lot of them ended up dying, being thrown overboard, some fell overboard, and kind of how like they came to be like mermaids and such. So it was really fun. It ties into like the Caribbean folklore and everything, and so it's a lot of fun. I think it's a great way to introduce kids to a different folklore and a different mythology outside of Greek. And if you yourself are interested, I think it's a good place to start too, because I don't know of any adult fantasy books that use Caribbean folklore. So, and I want that. I really do, because I think in the hands of an adult writer, Caribbean folklore could be so insanely interesting. So good. I really do. Next, we have The Tower of Stony Wood. This was unfortunately one of the ones I didn't get to, but it came from the wrapped shelf, so I will be carrying this over through the rest of the year. It's a Patricia. I'm pretty sure I will get to it before the end of the year. It's just, like I said, in August, I lost any kind of will to want to read. Then we have The Bards of Bone Plain by Patricia A. McKillop. Again, another one I unfortunately didn't get to. Came from the wrap shelf. She'll be carried forward. And then we have The Sorceress and the Signet. This is book 1 in the duology. The Sorceress and the Signet by Patricia A. McKillop. I started it, but unfortunately I didn't get very far. I learned for myself that I can't read 2 Patricias at the same time because of how she writes. And I was attempting to read this one and Odd Magic at the same time, and I ended up picking Odd Magic. So I will restart this one when I go back to it, just to give it its full attention. But I at least started it, just didn't finish it. So she will be carried over till the end of the year. Then we have Fearless by Helen Kirkman. This is the one romance book that I owned outside of my 2 other series that I own. This is one I owned from when I was much younger and my mother took it away from me. Didn't get to this, so don't know how I feel about it still. But this one also came from the wrap shelf, so I will be carrying this guy over for the rest of the year. Then we've got Raven Cry by Ed McDonald. Unfortunately, I did not get to this one either. This one does come from the cooking pot, so he will be going back into the cooking pot. I'm not too upset about not having gotten to this one, because honestly, like, the more I think about it, the more I want to reread book 1 before I jump into this one, because it was about 5 years ago when I read book 1, and I still haven't even gotten a hold of book 3 yet. And this is one of those series where, because I loved book 1, I know I'm going to continue enjoying it, and I kind of just wanted to read it all in one go, but I don't have the 3rd book still. So we'll go ahead. We're going to put this guy back in the pot, you know, that way he will have a chance later on in life. Next up, I have the Pendragon Chronicles. This is a short story collection. As you can see, I started it, and I kind of lost steam because I wasn't really jamming with the stories. As you can see, I think I'm 100 pages into it. Let's see. Where is, as long as the dust jacket doesn't fall off. Come on, open. Yeah, I'm 106 pages into it. I'm actually in the middle of a story. They're not terrible. I just, Guys, there was an entire story that just talked about Merlin's manly parts. And I was like, I don't need this. This is not a story that I need in the world of Arthurian tales. Like, granted, it talks about more things like his attraction to Guinevere and stuff like that, but there was so much focus on his manly regions, and I was like, I didn't need all this grave detail. I really didn't. So I'm still in the middle of this. This is one of the ones from the cooking pot that I'm actually just going to continue carrying over since I'm already so far into it, and it's a short story collection. So, you know, we'll see. Then we have The Shadow of What Was Lost. I did not get to this. Not surprised, honestly. It's a bit intimidating. So, yeah, we'll be putting this one back in the pot as well. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. Among Thieves by M.J. Kuhn. This was actually a replacement book for a different book that I had initially, but I found out that that one was second in a series and I had never read the first one, so I had to do a replacement, and this was a replacement. I thought I was going to get to it before the end of September because I had picked up the audiobook, but I got distracted playing Fallout, so that did not happen. So this one is going back into the pot. I also have to be like a little bit honest. I'm not fully 100% like interested. I guess that was partly why I never got around to actually listening to the audiobook, because it's a pretty short audiobook. But we'll see. I plan on at least trying it. So I don't know. We'll see. Whatever. Let's continue on. The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. Didn't get to this one either. Which is okay, honestly, because from what I know, this actually comes after his Book of the Ancestor trilogy, and I haven't read that one yet, so I guess it was a good thing I didn't get to it, and I guess they're like loosely connected, so yeah. And then we have A Gathering of Ravens by Scott Odin. I tried to combine Ravens and Odin into one word. I started this one prior to picking this, and I wasn't really vibing with it then, but I was like, whatever, I'll set it aside. And then it got picked, and then I never picked it up. What bookmark is in here? Oh, it's a book. I'm missing a bookmark, and I'm very upset about that. At least I think I'm missing one. It's such a stupid thing to be upset about, but like, I have an Ice Planet Barbarian bookmark collection, and I think I'm missing Tiffany and Salak's bookmark, but I'm not 100% positive. Like, because they came as extras with the books, and I'm like, did I order that one in time or not? So, anyways. And I leave bookmarks in books all the time. Anyways, this tag is going to go back inside the pot. So we'll try that one again some other time. And then the last one from the cooking pot is Threadneedle. And I started this one, and this is the one I DNF'd. I DNF'd this one. And it's because there's not a single likable character in this book. You immediately start out with just a super mean aunt who's like basically kind of verbally, physically, and emotionally abusive to her niece. And she kind of like carries that energy. Because like where my bookmark is, I actually went a little bit further than that because I was audiobooking this. And she just kind of never really stops. And then I did not know that this was set in school. And I do not like school settings for adult books or young adult books. I don't mind them in middle grade because it never really focuses on the school aspect, but this one did. And they're like in high school or whatever, and all the kids were terrible. All the friends that she was making were terrible. They were terrible to each other, terrible to other people. there wasn't really enough focus on magic for me to be interested. And then the one storyline about a group of women who were found dead wasn't getting enough attention. Like, I was genuinely interested in that aspect of the story, but there was just all this focus on high school drama and just being a teenager and the teenage drama that I was like, I hate this. And it kind of sucks because, like, I have the novella for this, and I gave the novella 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but it took place, like, at one of the girls, because the girl in the novella, she's in this book, which totally different vibe, by the way, which I didn't care for. But in the novella, she's at her aunt's house, and it's her just, like, it's like, I guess it's summer vacation, and she's, like, learning about her magic and all that other stuff, and so I enjoyed it more. But this one, yeah, wasn't enjoying it, so I ended up DNFing it. So yeah, I can at least, I'm not putting this in the pot, but I'm taking it out because I have a different jar to put it into, that I don't even think I told you guys about. So anyways, moving on, we have The Dragon and the George. I finished this one. I finished it, I think, actually October 1st, so I'm counting it anyways. But it's decent. I think I gave it 2 stars, which doesn't sound right when I say it's decent. I realize that now. I'm like, it's decent. I think I gave it 2. It's a story where you're going one direction, and then all of a sudden he, like, shoots off into left field, and you're like, sir, can you go back to the original plot? What are we doing here? Like, look at how short your book is. What are we doing? And it irritated me. Like, the whole middle portion of this book is just off in left field. And it felt like a way to just kind of expand the story without really making it feel like it's worth anything, in my personal opinion. Like, he tries to tie it back in towards the end of the story, but unfortunately for me, I was just like, bro, I don't care about how you're tying this in at all. The characters, they're all right. They're nothing, they don't stand out. Some of them are kind of like flat. I will say Daffyd he was romantic-y coded. Okay, way before, this book was written in what, the 60s? Let me double check that. Hold on. The 70s. So this was written in the 70s, 1976. Daffyd was romantic-y coded before romantic-y became, like, the obnoxious nausea that it is right now. Because this man took one look at Danielle and was like, hi, I'm Daffyd. I'm in love with you. Would you be my wife? Look at me. I'm so strong and tall. I'm so great at everything. Like, that. And I was like, sir, you just met this woman. Like, what are we doing? And then, honestly, their entire romance is very romantic-y coded. You know, not a whole lot of effort, but they're madly in love. It's such a small side plot, but it sticks out because it's like their only personality trait with each other. The wolf, it took me a minute to care for the wolf because, like, honestly, if you're gonna have a wolf companion, I want them to be nice. I don't want them to be mean. Like, I don't want them to be mean to the main character. I just don't. And, like, that was, like, kind of my issue with Arg. Also, I didn't like his name. Arg. Was he a pirate? Didn't really care for that. But I did enjoy some of his interactions with Danielle because he was a little softy for Danielle. Like, she would scratch him behind his ears and he'd be like, this is the greatest thing ever. And they're like, oh, you're so soft. No, I'm not. I'm gonna go kill something now. And you're like, okay, Arg. I will say for me, I did enjoy how Jim and Angie ended up in this fantasy world because it is like one of those, I know the Japanese term, isekai, you know, like where you portal, I think that's what we call it here in the Western, portal fantasies, where they end up from like I said, I know the Japanese term. The Japanese call it isekai. But basically that's what this is. He gets isekai'd to another world, but I really liked how the author went about that because it felt different. It's not the usual, it's definitely not the Japanese way of being hit by truck kun, you know, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was intriguing. The ending brings in some really weird elements, like out of left field, and I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean the accounting people? What is this credit thing you're talking about? And that's where I think it disconnected from the middle of the book, because the middle of the book went this direction, and then the end of the book went this direction, and things just got really confusing, and I was like, I don't understand what all this other stuff is you're doing, sir. What is happening here? So not the best. I do have the rest of the entire series. It's 9 books. I might give book 2 a chance. I'm going to wait till I pull it out of the jar. So we'll see when I get there. Next we have Gail Martin's The Sworn. Did not get to this one, so that's being carried over because it's, I pulled it from the thing. Besieged by Rowena Corey Daniels. You guys should read her Chronicles of King Roland's Kin. It's such a great series. Did not get to this one. Sing the Four Quarters by Tanya Huff. Did not get to this one either. Black Feathers I started. I didn't get far, but I started it. So that's progress. And then The Summoner by Gail Z. Martin. You'll think I started it. Psych, I didn't. That was from like 3 years ago. So did not get to this one. And then last and definitely least, Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman. I read this. It is my worst book of the year. I hated every inch of this book. I plan on doing a review video for it where, fingers crossed, I'm not too mean about it, but this was dreadful to get through for me. If you love Dragonlance, that's great. I'm happy for you. Good for you. This made me want to yeet myself off of a bridge. I don't like any of the characters. Well, not necessarily true. There's a few that I have like an inkling of some compassion for, but ultimately I don't like anybody in this book. I didn't like any of the events. It was too D&D for me. I'm not a big fan of D&D, so I didn't know it was going to be this D&D, but yeah, but just, it was so long and drawn out and just so annoying to read through. Like I said, I'm going to do a review video where I talk about it, and I'm going to try and be nice about it, but yeah, in hindsight, I should have DNF'd it. The only reason I didn't was because everybody's like, well, if you want to read the trilogy about the twins, you have to read this one first so you know the events. And at this point, I'm willing to go into the twins trilogy not knowing the events. But also, I'm kind of thinking that I just don't want to read any more Dragonlance books at all. So, yeah. That's the summer TBR update. We will be carrying over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books, because those are all from the unwrapped shelf. And like I said, I don't want to rewrap them suckers, so I will not be doing that. So I will just carry those over for the rest of the year, and hopefully by the time December 31st comes, I will have finished reading all of these. That's the goal. So was it super successful, summer TBR? No. Was it also because I was super depressed and distracted by video games at one point? Yes. So, we're doing what we can. At least I got some stuff read, and it was all stuff that I owned. And, it's not like I'm throwing these books out because I didn't read them. I just didn't get to them. So they'll get a chance some other time. So, yeah. If you stuck around this long, thank you. Sorry, it was a little rambly. If you read any of these, you can let me know down in the comments. But yeah, I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.